Hey guys, welcome back to Literature Time with Jess and Riley. In today's episode, we're going to be answering some questions you left for us from last week's episode, which was us reacting to the Gravediggers scene
from the 1996 version. So we're going to be answering questions first from Twitter and then from YouTube. Our first question is from Lindsay_XX, who asked, does this scene help our understand the characters? So I definitely think it does, because I think it helps our understanding of Hamlet and as well the townspeople. So it helps our understanding of Hamlet because when he sees the skull of Yorick, who was a court jester when he was really little, he becomes very philosophical, and it helps him face the fear of death and life and mortality. So it also helps us understand the Gravediggers because it gives them the perspective, and we understand how they're feeling about everything that's happened in the play so far.
Mm-hmm. The next question is from @Bobby245, who asks, does this scene add to the play? And that's a great question. I think that this scene is really great because it shows the perspective of the townspeople, which is really important because throughout the play we've never heard what they think about the royal family and sort of what's happened with Hamlet Sr.'s death and then Claudius getting the crown. So this is the first time we kind of hear what they think, and they talk about their opinions on Ophelia's death and the decision to bury her in the ground, even though she's not a royal.
Well, also, suicide is considered the worst sin possible, so they're discussing how they don't think it's fair that she's being buried in a Catholic burial ground where the king and all the royal family is buried when she committed suicide. Yeah. There's a quote, let me pull it up, I think it's here it is, where one of the Gravediggers says, "Here stands the man good. If the man go to this water and drown himself, it is willy-nilly he goes, mark you that. But if the water comes to him and drown him, he drowns not himself. Argal, that is not guilty of his own death, shortens not his own life." So basically they're saying that they feel like there's no possible way that her death could be accidental, therefore ruling her death as suicide, and she committed a huge sin, so she shouldn't be buried in the royal graveyard.
Yeah. Perfect timing. I think that's our special guest. Come on in. This is the infamous York, everyone.
Thanks for inviting me over.
So we just wanted to ask you a couple questions, York.
Of course, ask away.
Okay, so we were wondering what your thoughts were on having Ophelia being buried in the same grave as you.
I was okay with it. I mean, it was a long time ago, and honestly, I needed the vacation. I've laid there long enough, and poor Ophelia deserved it more than I. I heard she drowned after being consumed by her own madness. I know she wasn't a part of the royal family, but after what Hamlet did to her, it would be wrong for her to be buried anywhere else.
Ophelia definitely lived a very tragic life. She definitely needs to be buried in a good burial site.
I unfortunately have to go. I'm moving to a new yard. Gotta check out the neighborhood.
Okay, so thank you for coming, Yorick. See you later. So this is the last question from Twitter. It's from King Beetle. They ask, what kind of imagery pattern does this scene have? So this scene actually has a lot of imagery. It has first the skull, which represents death. This is really shown with Hamlet and him. When he holds the skull, he's literally coming face to face with death. So this alludes later to when Hamlet dies and he literally has to face his own death. So the other part of the imagery is the graveyard, which is decay. So there's a great quote in here about Hamlet bringing up Alexander the Great and his dust. "Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till a find it stopping in a bunghole?" So that's showing that Hamlet understands that we all have the same fate. We all die and we all decay and just become skeletons.
And the theme of life and death is definitely brought out a lot throughout this play. For Hamlet, this was a really great scene because he finally realizes that he can just go with his instincts because death is unavoidable and no matter what he does, he's going to die in the end. So he might as well just live his life without having to overthink all of his decisions.
So now we have a comment from YouTube from Brooke_180, and they say, this is foreshadowing. There is quite a few areas of foreshadowing in this scene. So the first one is when Hamlet is literally facing death. This foreshadows that he's going to have to face death and his own death later in the play. This scene also really helps set the tone for the final battle. It makes a very creepy and very final tone.
And then the last question we're going to answer is from Hammy Lover 2, and they ask, what would be lost if this scene was cut from the play? So without this scene, we wouldn't have anything to break up the two intense scenes. Previously, we had Laertes and Claudius planning Hamlet's death, and after this, we're going to have the final duel, the final scene of the whole play. So we need this comic relief to relieve tension from both of these intense scenes. The Gravediggers do a really good job of adding comic relief. They're very funny. They make jokes about everything. After this, it can go back to being intense, and that's sort of how Shakespeare lays out how he formats his plays.
That's all we have for now. Thanks for watching Literature Time with Jess and Riley. And thank you to Yorick for popping by.
Be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode where we'll continue watching and reacting to Act 5 of Hamlet. Make sure you subscribe, leave comments,
Like,
ring that notification bell.
bye.
All right, bye.